So there's 5 types, and I can walk through those. And then your authority is how you make decisions. And the bullet point that I will give you on that is that no one is designed to make decisions from pro-con lists and by thinking things through. It's actually, according to human design, really in our body. We make decisions from somewhere in our body. And so being able to get back in touch with, you don't even have to know your human design. You can think back on decisions that you've made that have worked out well and think about what did you do leading up to that and how did that feel in your body. You can just create that strategy, and I pretty much guarantee it's going to line up with what your human design chart says.
Welcome to the Her First podcast, a platform to help online business owners, coaches, and creators gain the confidence needed to build a successful business while creating a sustainable lifestyle balance. We are here to help you prioritize yourself in business and life. I'm Joanna Newton.
And I'm Michelle Puolani. In this podcast, along with the Her First Collective, you can engage in the challenges women face in business, ways to increase your impact or income online, and how to make it all work while launching, scaling, or maintaining. Spoiler, it's not about perfectionism, hustling, or a copy-paste methodology. Let's dive in. Navigating the intersection of business and motherhood is no easy feat. From deciding where to invest your time to feeling the guilt of prioritizing either work or mothering, it can be difficult to decide how to spend your time while building a business. Today, we're sharing insights and stories about how we carve out dedicated time for work while still managing the joys or difficulties of motherhood. We're chatting about ways to nurture your personal well-being amidst the demands of entrepreneurship. So welcome back to the Her First podcast, the place where you can prioritize you in business and life. Today's guest, Megan Barrett, began her entrepreneurial journey through a humble food blog and has evolved into a seasoned business owner, creating courses and empowering others to connect with their passions on a deeper level. With a unique blend of mindset mastery, human design, and strategic thinking, she's all too familiar with the roadblocks that can hinder the growth of a business owner. Based in East Texas and juggling the roles of entrepreneur and mother to 3 kids, today we're going to dive into the power of human design as a tool for really understanding your energy flow and identifying the areas where you shine the brightest. You may be experiencing the common challenges of feeling that kind of pervasive notion that success means always being on the grind. What if you could actually help reframe your mindset and embrace a more balanced approach to entrepreneurship? Megan is here to help with that today. So welcome, Megan. Thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here and just to share wisdom, have a conversation. I'm excited about it.
Absolutely. Well, we're very happy to have you. And just to give you an overview as a listener, Megan is a life and business coach who really loves helping female entrepreneurs build the business of their dreams in a way that's sustainable and aligned to their values, strengths, and desires, which essentially is exactly what we all want as we're building. Megan, can we just start with a little bit of your backstory, how you got into entrepreneurship and growing the business that you have today alongside motherhood?
Absolutely. So my entrepreneur journey started a little over 5 years ago when I was home with my kids, and in that place of, we lived on 5 acres on a little mini farm, and I have a knack for improving things. So I'm like a 1 on the Enneagram. I look around and I'm like, let's improve this. Let's optimize the furniture in this room, or let's move the animals over here and let's just do things. So my husband would come home from work and I would have this list, like this master list of things that needed improved. And it was like, let's do this right now. Let's just go. We can do it really quick. And he'd be exhausted from his day. And he's really, can it wait till the weekend? And so I was accumulating this list and all these things that I wanted to do because I had that energy inside of, I want to be doing something. This like light bulb moment of, I need something else for myself that doesn't rely on my husband like going and out and putting in a fence or something. So I started thinking like, what might I want to do? And that's when I decided to start a blog. And it was not just, some people who start a blog have the mindset of, this is just a fun little hobby. Mine was really, I was starting it as a business. And I wanted to contribute to the family finances. I wanted like an outlet for that energy of like, I want to be doing something. I had no idea that I would really fall in love with online business as much as I did. And so I started learning, I started taking courses, I started doing different strategies along the way. And at some point, I realized I paused. It was probably on the adrenaline high of starting something new. And I paused and it was like, okay, this was fine for a little bit, but the way that I've been doing this is not sustainable to myself, my health, my energy, my family. It was every moment that I wasn't busy, I was busy with my business. And so that was when I think I just started being more aware of what I was doing and how I was doing it and being more mindful about what I was doing, how much time was I spending on it? Is this actually the way that I want to be running a business? Because at that point, I had decided I did want to be running a business. And that was when things started shifting to where I wanted to start helping people in a deeper way. I had sold some online courses and started seeing some common blocks with people. I had a food blog and I was helping them with meal planning. And I kept seeing kind of the mindset stuff coming up. And I got really interested in the mindset behind why people can't stick with habits and what are those blocks that are keeping people from doing these things that they say they want to be doing. And I kept getting these responses like, I've tried that before and it didn't work for me. And so I really started digging into the mindset and got into a lot of different, I enrolled in some coaching certification programs, did a lot of work on myself and realized I really love the mindset stuff. I love thinking about why our brains work the way we do. I almost was a psychology major until people were like, you can't do anything with that. Like, talked me out of it, but I loved it. It was always so fascinating to me. And so it's not really that surprising that I love the mindset and found human design also along the way and have really loved pairing the mindset and the subconscious reprogramming work with human design and helping people really tune into who are you designed to be, giving them permission to run a business in a way that really feels good to them, not just how someone else might say this is how you have to do it, because there's so much noise out there that I experienced running my blog, like you have to do it like this and you have to do this. And that just it wasn't working for me. It wasn't how my body is designed to really put out energy. And so I've had that firsthand experience of that misalignment of what does that feel like? What does it look like to run a business that felt like it was like diverging from how I felt good, how I felt energized, and what I felt like was needed. And so I love helping people bring those paths back together and help them expand their thinking. There isn't just one way to do it. There's so many ways to run a business. And if we can start with like, how are you designed and what actually sounds fun, then that's like the most sustainable way that we can run a business for everybody.
What's so interesting is so many people, we become entrepreneurs because we want that freedom. We become an entrepreneur because we're like, I can make my own schedule. I get to decide what I do. I do all of those things. But if you've ever worked a corporate job or look at the models you have of how to do business, it's so easy to just create the same problems for yourself in your own business that you had in your corporate job or you had in your typical 9 to 5. You just can get into those patterns. If you don't have a model to look at, then you just copy what you know, and then you can end up being burnt out, stressed out, overworked, just like you were in your 9 to 5, and maybe not making more money, right? And maybe not even improving your income in any sort of way. So thinking that through, going back to your mindset, you have to be thinking about how you design your day, how you design your workflows. How do you say yes or no to clients? Michelle and I did a whole episode about finding alignment with clients and it being okay if someone isn't the right fit for you because you're the one deciding what you do and who you are. One big topic I'm seeing a little different than designing your workday is that I've been having on my personal social media accounts is about like leadership qualities. People say a leader has to be aggressive and out front and all of these very specific things to be successful. But why? What if we rethink leadership and people lead in the way that is natural and designed to them? And so for our listeners who are listening in and thinking like, oh, this sounds like me. Like I'm a business owner. I'm designing my days, but I'm experiencing stress. I'm experiencing friction. It's not quite working for me. How might they go about thinking about their business differently in a way that better aligns with who they are naturally?
I love what you said about you experience your 9 to 5 maybe in one way, and then you jump into entrepreneurship and you find that you're doing the exact same thing because that's just how our brains work, right? Like we've associated to be successful, that means this, and maybe that looks a certain way to you. And so I really think the first step is bringing to awareness those patterns that we have and those assumptions that we're making at like the deepest level of like, I have to work this many hours a day, or I have to work at this office, or whatever those things are that you're like really tapping into the emotion of it, of which parts are feeling that friction? Like, where are you feeling that misalignment? Is it how much you're working? Is it what you're working on? Is it like who you're working with? Like, where's that friction coming from? And then really digging into what if what if that assumption that you have there isn't true at all? For example, if you're working, maybe you think you have to work 40 hours a week as an entrepreneur, but that's really burning you out. Like digging in, what if it was possible that you could work 10 hours a week and be just as successful? Like, how does that feel? Does that feel more expansive? Does that feel more like aligned for you? And what are those thoughts that are coming up? Is it like, that's not possible for me? And if so, tuning into those, tapping and writing them down, finding someone who can help you work through those, because those are those limiting beliefs that are keeping you in that pattern of continuing to make those choices that are going to produce that friction. And so really it's just awareness, because most likely it's not everything that's friction. Most likely there are parts of what you're doing that feel really good. And that's probably why you got into it. Or maybe at one point they did feel good. And so really just assessing that, what is actually working right now, and not just what's bringing in the money, but what's feeling good to me. What do I like doing? What do I enjoy doing? What like soothes my soul to do in my business?
Mindset is something that keeps coming up on the podcast and the interviews that we've been having and what we've been chatting about recently, is that the intention, mindset, frame of reference, belief system, the way of thinking that you go into something is going to dictate your actions, how you show up, what you choose to focus on, how you perform. And it ingrains everything that we do. And I think sometimes we forget that because we get focused on the tasks. We get focused on the day-to-day. We get wrapped up in that to-do list. We get wrapped up in the schedule. And we just think, okay, I wake up in the morning. I've got to get the kids taken care of. I don't have kids. I got to get the dogs taken care of. But for those of us, as we're talking about motherhood today, we've got to get those kids taken care of. We've got to take care of ourselves. We've got to take this meeting. We've got to do this task. We've got to post this thing. Like, we've got to respond to all of these things. And we almost go into this cycle of just getting caught up in the activities. So first step that I completely agree with is always taking a step back, learning to assess, learning to understand and bring awareness to those things that we are doing, and starting to uncover and understand, why are we doing them? What is that motivated by? Was it something that someone taught us that we just have ingrained into our way of being and our way of life, and that doesn't actually work for us? Is it something that we think we should be doing because, again, this is something that we either learned at some point, or we've created some sort of unreasonable expectation or sense of lifestyle that we're putting on ourselves and putting that pressure in order to fulfill? So yes, taking that step back, learning to assess, learning to become aware, such an important part in terms of how you're showing up in your business on a day-to-day basis. So when it comes to your business and how you've seen that expand, I'm curious, you started with the food blog, you launched some courses. I know that you've done some perhaps one-to-one, launching a group program. So what does your business look like, and what's that structure in how you're generating income, showing up online, and building what it is that you want to create, that you feel called to create?
It's an interesting question because I'm on this journey myself where it seems to happen in layers of I start my coaching business and I have to do it this way. We all have these things, even myself as a mindset coach. I have to do one-on-one and I have to have calls and I have to do this. And I did that for a while and then I pushed pause and I'm doing the things that I'm talking about here. I don't really love having a full call, my calendar full of calls on the days that I work. I want to have more space and I want to have time to really plan ahead and create some courses and create more of a foundation in my business. And so I had a little bit of a pivot moment where I was able to step back and assess and decide I don't want to have one-on-one clients if it's all about calls. And so I've been making this shift towards what my coach calls asynchronous coaching through Voxer. It's how she provides it. I'm not opposed to calls, but I can see so much value both in my own life. In human design, I am a manifester. I don't have consistent energy. So I have these urges and pushes of energy. And so for me, having a schedule that's full of calls feels like this heavy weight in my body. If I look at the week ahead and it's, wow, I'm just booked, that it doesn't feel good to me. So I've been reducing my calls and increasing maybe one-off calls for human design or even continuous human design packages, one call a month for people. And then for people who really want that integrated mindset, human design business support, that's where I am offering Voxer coaching. It's primarily in Voxer. So it's Monday through Friday, someone can reach out and be okay, here's this question. But I think it serves people so much in a different way. The right people who are right for me are going to feel the same way that I do about, I don't want to wait 2 weeks for my next call. And then oftentimes in the past with me, when I've had coaches, I make this list of all these things I want to bring to the next call. And then once I get on the call, it's they've lost their charge. It's okay, that was a big deal 5 days ago, but I feel fine about it now. And you assume I'm through it. I'm over that. And so the beauty of the asynchronous Voxer coaching is in the moment, okay, this just happened. A client just said this to me. I just got off a sales call. I'm not sure what to do because I'm feeling X, Y, and Z, and I'm not sure what next steps to take. It's just such a more in the moment option. And we all have these layers, layers of the conditioning and layers of the beliefs and limiting beliefs and how we've observed people doing things. And so I'm in the process. Every time I'm putting a new offer out there or shifting things, I feel okay, this feels very aligned for me.
I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, it feels really counterintuitive to limit what you offer. You want to be able to offer everything to everyone in order to serve the most people, have your business make the most possible money, all of those things, right? So one of the things I do is I help people build online courses and memberships and all of that. And we have very specific offerings that we offer people. And when you get on a discovery call with someone, you can want to make up a new package for them on the spot so that you can get the sale and get the people in your system. But that's not always the best thing for your business, right? It might not be the best thing to do a custom project. It might not actually profit margin wise work very well for you if it's not what you offer. I think sometimes if you encounter something and you don't have a service for them, you want to just give that person what they want, even if it's not right for you, even if it's not right for your business, because you think you will make more. Your brain says, I will make less money if I'm saying no to people or if I'm not offering something that happens. But I find a lot of times the opposite happens is you can increase your income by getting more specific with your offerings. And that can feel so wrong to us. But I think what happens is over time, you become known for this specific thing that you do. So when someone hears, oh, I need someone who does this, you specifically do that thing, so someone's going to refer you. Or your messaging on your website, on your profiles, on your things is so clear. I offer specifically this thing, then people, it reduces a barrier for them. Because one of the things we talk about it when we coach course creators is instead of worrying about having so many competitors, become a competition of one. If you're the only one who offers exactly what you do in the exact flavor that you do it, when someone aligns with you, they're going to make that purchase and join you. And I think about your more on-demand coaching aspect, like that would work well for someone like me. I am freaking busy. I've had like, I don't know, it feels like I've had 8 hours of calls before getting on this podcast, and it's 2 o'clock in my time zone, right? And I have a couple more calls. I have to send proposals. I've got a laundry list of things to do. Adding a regular call to my calendar right now would put me over the edge. So for some people, a coaching program that has very specific time commitments is too much. And that could be the perfect person who goes, I need help, but this is going to work so much better for me because I don't have to dedicate 10 specific work 9 to 5 hours in the day, especially like I'm a mom, right? Sometimes it makes more sense for me to do my work after my kid goes to bed. You can't do calls at 10 o'clock at night, but I can write content at 10 o'clock at night. And so you have to start rethinking what you want to offer, and being specific will likely expand what you're able to do and accomplish and not actually reduce it.
Because I've had that tendency too, getting on a call with someone or just talking on Instagram to someone and they're like, what I really need is this. And like that tendency or that almost not like that impulse to be like, I can do that. I can feel that need. But I think really what people are looking for is for us to stand really confidently and firmly and saying, this is what I offer and this is why it's actually the best option for you. And I think I've been on the receiving end of that, and it feels almost like, oh, interesting. Like they're so like convicted in what they have. They're like, so there's something so magnetizing to that of someone being able to stand, even if it's like, no, that's not what I'm offering. And this is why having that, I don't know, I don't really want to say data, but almost data, like data of this is what feels good to me. This is how I've helped other people with this. This is why it can be so supportive for you. Like that confidence in this is what I'm offering and this is why it's great. I think that's often what people are actually looking for, even if they're like, I need this and I need this. Because so many times I hear people who will come to me and they're like, oh, I'm planning a lunch and I just don't know. Is it going to be a 3-day lunch or a 7-day lunch? Like I can't figure it out. And they think it's a strategy problem, and it's always a mindset problem, like almost always. If they're stuck on something like that, it's let's dig into why you think this matters. What's going on underneath of this? And I think it's the same for what we're talking about with these offers. Like you might think, oh, I have to have this many calls and this type of support in this coaching package, but really what you need is someone to be on your side and someone to be there for you. And you think it might need to look a certain way, but what if it doesn't? It's not like expanding. What if it doesn't have to look exactly how you think or you've been told that it actually has to look?
I think it's part of that people-pleasing nature that we tend to have, especially as women, to meet their needs or what they say they're expressing. But what I've found is that people don't always know what they want. They don't know how to articulate it, or maybe they think they have this idea, just like you're saying, Megan, is they think it's this thing, but it's actually this thing. So we as practitioners, as coaches, as business owners and entrepreneurs have to understand, okay, this is what you're telling me, but how do I actually meet that? And obviously the marketing and the delivery are going to be two different things, because often you're marketing that want, that desire, that interest, that outcome. But sometimes the delivery of that is going to be different because it meets the need of what they're truly looking for. And sometimes only we know that and can articulate that and share that. So I think it takes a bit of consumer education, and it takes being really convicted in what you're doing and not, like you say, just like giving into the whim of those people that are coming to you. Standing strongly in what it is that you do, believing in your offer, believing in your service and how you help and support, and then being able to, as you're navigating your business, one of the things that we wanted to talk about today is motherhood. And you have this very specific kind of human design quality. We've had other folks who have focused on human design before. How do you navigate balancing business, motherhood, and life? And for those of us listening, motherhood is, I think, a unique thing in and of itself, but it also could mean if you're not a mom yet, because I don't have kids, I still have family obligations. I have nieces, nephews, I have dogs, I have all of these other things in my life. As you're listening to Megan, thinking about how this applies to you when it comes to the personal side of things and balancing personal with professional and thinking, how is this going to all work for me?
Back when I had my food blog, I had 2 young kids at the time. And so I would wake up before they woke up and I'd work on my business. And then they'd wake up and I would be in my mom mode. And then I'd put them down for a nap and I'd work on my business. And maybe I'd get an email and I'd be like, oh, this will just take 15 minutes. I gotta do this really quick. And so it was occupying my mind so much. And then I'd put them to bed at night and then I'd work on my business some more. And that's one way to do it. There are probably moms that is how they're running their business right now. For me, at some point, I decided that was not working. I had no mental margin. I had no space for myself. I had every moment that was, quote, free, I was working. And so things like self-care and like my own health was taking a toll. And it was getting pushed out because I was focusing so much and just felt like I had to put everything that I had into my business. And so now I work on my business 2 days a week. And we like split time with my husband and my mom. And so we work out some childcare and my older two are in school. And having that boundary for me is really supportive and it helps in so many ways because I know I have this time. This is my space. And I think as moms, we're just interrupted like all the time. So I don't know if other moms are like this. I'm pretty sure they are. If a kid has a choice to go to dad or to go to mom, they go to mom. And it's like my door is closed. They still would knock on my door before they would interrupt my husband if he was like standing there doing nothing. And so I have in our house, I have the office, like the spare room, I have the door that's closed. And I've had to really put up the boundary, like a physical boundary, but also I have to hold that boundary for myself. And so that's like communicating to my husband, my kids, if that door is closed, you don't come in. That means I'm busy. And I think I hear from moms sometimes who feel really frustrated that their family isn't respecting their boundaries or that they don't have the time that they want to work. And I think it really starts with us holding that boundary for ourselves and saying, this is my space and this is my time and this is what I'm doing here. Just because I have the full 2 days a week that I'm like working, that are my work days, that doesn't mean that I'm working all day, both days. That means like I get the space to do what I want to do. And sometimes I'll leave my door open if I'm like open to conversations, but I've practiced holding this boundary enough to where they respect it now. Now they know. And that may require some uncomfortable conversations and even family who's local want to be like, oh, let's like get together. I'm like, this is my work day. And so having that transition to holding your own boundary, making sure other people know this is like my space and this is my time. I think that can relate to business. That can relate to like your health. Like this is my time that I go to the gym or this is how I make my food. This is when I do my meal prep. It can relate to any area of our lives. We're talking business today, but I think that's one thing that's really been helpful for me is just setting that boundary because I do have that people-pleasing gene, if that's a gene. I spent a lot of years as a kid. I was a middle kid. I was the kid who got the good grades and did everything for everybody else, trying to be like as quiet and as hidden as possible, not like wanting to don't make waves, don't do anything, don't upset anybody. And I'm stepping more into this this version of myself that is like able to take up space and this is who I am and these are the desires that I have and like how can we make this work as a family? And I truly believe that if we have a desire to run our business, to start a business, that it's actually what's best for everybody else around us. Having those desires the more women we can help start their businesses and run their businesses in a way that they can really continue and sustain them in a way that really supports their family systems and whatever else they have going on, that is going to benefit the world and the community and their families.
You bring up so many good points. Like all of those things are so good. And when you listen to them, you're like, yes, I should do that. And I should do that. And I should do that. And when you're a mom and a spouse and you have a house to take care of and you're a person to take care of and you have a business and you have clients, it's so easy to break your boundaries. You're saying you might, for example, if you're looking at your week and how you work best. You might say, okay, on Mondays, I want to do this. And on Tuesdays, I want to do this. And on Wednesdays, you want to do this. And you have this schedule set up. And then someone wants to meet with you on Wednesdays on the day you say you're never going to have any meetings. And then you say, I'm just going to take that one meeting. I'm just going to do that thing. That can be really easy to say no to your boundaries and then say no again. Because again, I think we get into this mindset, if I don't say yes now, I'm going to miss XYZ opportunity. And then with your kids are really easy at interrupting. And my husband listens to this podcast, hear this as well. Husbands are really good at interrupting too. I love him, and I'll have to tell him, pre-tell him I'm talking about him. But sometimes in families, moms make a lot of decisions. I think that's just people look, kids, husbands, spouses, they look to the mom to like, oh, should I do this or this? Should I do this or this? Should I do this or this? And when you're an entrepreneur, you may have lots of people looking at you. Should I do this or this or this? And sometimes that decision fatigue, I know for me, just overwhelms me. Last night, I was playing Twister with my daughter, and my husband was working on something. And like they were both like vying for my attention back and forth. And like I just snapped. Like I hit this, I cannot be brain switching between these two topics back and forth. You didn't mean back and forth. It became too much, right? And sometimes that happens. And figuring out how to set your life up in a way to limit that, to communicate with your family, to communicate with your coworkers, to set those boundaries. And that's the thing about boundaries is they're your rules, right? And you have to enforce them. You can ask people to respect them, but they're your rules to enforce. And I think that's a hard lesson to learn, I think, as a mom, as a woman, to stick to those things, because I think there's so much in our society that tells us that we should mold to others, right? And we should adjust to what others need.
Things that you said pop out to me that I want to respond to, but I have 3 kids, and they will just sit in a room and be like, Mom, and it drives me crazy. I can't do it. And part of that is knowing my human design. And so I love coming back to human design. I know all my kids' human design, my husband's, and it's super helpful because for a long time, I made that mean I'm a bad mom. If I can't handle 3 kids calling to me at all times of the day, that's just what motherhood means. When really, my human design does not do very well with responding all the time. Having that awareness and being able to communicate to my kids of, okay, let's like find a different way. I know you want my attention and I want to be able to support you. But I mean, one day I kept a tally of how many times they said mom, and it was like in the 70s. It was like a lot. And so it brought awareness to them. It brought awareness to me like, okay, everybody, this doesn't really work for me. Let's find another way to communicate. You say mom once. And then for me as a manifestor, I do much better when I get to decide, when I go and respond, when I go and kind of initiate, hey, what did you need? I'm ready now. I have this time and I have this space. Whereas some human designs, like generators, manifesting generators, actually, they thrive on responding. And so that may not bother them as much as myself, a manifestor, who I need to be the one who decides this is when I'm going to do this. And so part of that awareness is like so helpful, because I think for a long time I would make that mean something's wrong with me. Like, why do I get so irritated, when really it can be a simple switch. Even like shifting how we communicate with each other can be super supportive. And I think also about what you were saying about the boundaries, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, like today's a Wednesday and I'm doing this podcast recording. And that was a conscious decision. And that means that on another day, I'm going to block off extra time. And I think part of it is knowing, what is the motivation for this boundary in the first place? For me, I don't want to be someone who's always thinking about work. And so I make sure I have that blank space where sometimes I love my work and I love thinking about it and it's addictive. And so I have to make that space, and I'm going to go to the kitchen and I'm going to make cookies, and I'm not going to think, like, anytime work comes into my head, I'm like swiping, like pretending it's a whole tab in my brain. I'm swiping. No, I'm not going to think about that, because I've been like, that's my tendency. And I know that about myself. And I know that it's easy to overbook myself, whether it's actual bookings or it's just like the ideas like I flood into my brain, or maybe I should do this, or maybe I should do this. Maybe I should reach out to this person. And so for me, I know the motivation behind like the 2 days is making sure that I have that space. We can know, why did I set this boundary in the first place? And it's that slippery slope where if you don't know why you set the boundary in the first place, that's how you can get into those situations where you look around and you're like, how did I get here? Like I said I was only working this much, or I said that I was only doing this. And now look at my schedule, and just being able to come back to that. What do we want? Who am I? What really feels good? And how can we like return back to that?
Getting clear on how we want to design our day, our business, our schedule, and how we're really investing that time. I want to lean into the human design piece a little bit more, but just highlighting before we get to that, the mental capacity that we have the ability to hold space for is limited. And so allowing yourself to give time, energy, physical space, if that's necessary, to clear opens up for improved thinking, better mental clarity, higher levels of creativity, ability to focus, and decision make, which is, again, something that we've highlighted multiple times today and that we've talked about on the podcast before. Is we do so much making of decisions as business owners. We have to. It's part of the job, so to speak. So with human design specifically, if someone wasn't super familiar with human design, and is it possible to just outline the main types of human design profiles and how they apply to business for each person? And just, again, I know there's so many details and so many directions we could go, but just showing up in your business in this way as an overarching statement would be a good place to get started. Is that possible?
It is possible. And I will give a caveat that, right, human design is a rabbit hole and there's so much nuance. And so even within the types, it's very possible that you're like, resonate with what she said about that other type. And that's totally fine, because I think that there's so many shades even within the types. We could be here for the next 4 hours and I could get into all the nitty gritty, but nobody really wants that. Everyone wants, what can I take away from this? And so I'm happy to go through the types and like how you might show up in your business. I will say for human design, if you can live by your strategy and your authority, your strategy is determined by your type. So there's 5 types and I can walk through those. And then your authority is how you make decisions. And the bullet point that I will give you on that is that no one is designed to make decisions from pro-con lists and by thinking things through. It's actually, according to human design, really in our body. We make decisions from somewhere in our body. And so being able to get back in touch with, you don't even have to know your human design. You can think back on decisions that you've made that have worked out well and think about, what did you do leading up to that? And how did that feel in your body? You can just create that strategy, and I pretty much guarantee it's going to line up with what your human design chart says. So we don't even have to get into the authorities today. I'll just give you that advice to think back. What are the decisions that have worked out well for you that you've made in the past? What are the decisions that didn't? And like, how did those feel differently before you made that decision and as you were making that decision? And that can be just enlightening, because so often we're told you got to think it through. You got to make sure you have your pro-con lists or whatever, especially I think in business, it can be data-based. And so I think that can be super supportive for people. About the strategy, each type has a different strategy, and it's like the way you show up in the world and in your business. Manifestors are really here to initiate, which is like starting new things. So as it relates to business, if you're a manifestor in business, you are here, which that's my type, you're here to start a project. So you're going to get some sort of creative urge. It's not just an idea. It's like something that you just feel like compelled. I don't exactly know how this is going to end. I don't know all the step by step. I don't know everything about it, but I know I have to do this thing. And so you're going to initiate it with whatever that looks like for the specific thing that you're initiating. And it's important for manifestors to have people or a group of people to support them to carry it through, because manifestors don't have consistent energy to finish everything that we start. So it's all about initiating and informing about what you're doing. So in business, a lot of times that means sharing with your audience, like, I'm about to make this program. Here's why it's important. Sometimes for manifestors, informing can be full of conditioning, limiting beliefs, because often manifestors as kids had to ask for permission. If you say what you're going to do, there's a chance people aren't going to agree with it. And there's a chance that people are going to tell you, no, you can't do that. Or that's like, why would you do that? And so it's very vulnerable for manifestors to inform. And so as you're just getting started on initiating something, whether that's an online course or a new offer or a new business or whatever you're doing, as you're getting ready to do that, as you're building that momentum, inform the people that need to know first. So if it's like your husband and you need a little bit of extra time to work on this thing, inform them, clear that way a little bit, and trust that the people who are right for this offer or whatever you're doing are going to be like magnetized to you for it. And the people who aren't are going to just get out of the way. So that really start things. Next, we'll talk about generators. Generators are like the worker bees of society. The generators and manifesting generators make up like 70% of people. And they really have that consistent access to energy. It's that sacral energy of like creativity and pleasure. And it's really important for generators to find something that feels really good, that really lights them up, that makes them excited and really want to do it. And their strategy is to respond. And my husband is a generator. My oldest is a generator. Do you want to do this or this? So having something to respond to is really supportive for a generator. I think like a manifestor to start things, a generator to finish things is a really good pair. My husband and I, that works really well for us. I'll say I want to start this project and he's like, great, I'm taking it away, and he can finish it for the family and for us. And so for generators, I think the main source of conditioning with them is really they can have some people pleasing. They can have this idea that I have to finish this thing just because I started it, when really it's once you lose that spark, oh, this is like not fun anymore, that's when you got to step back and find a way to either bring that spark back or like really make a plan to shift gears. I think it can be a little bit unrealistic to think that everyone's going to love every minute of their job for, every day for their whole life. And so there's going to be those things that everybody, like some people aren't going to like to do the things that maybe are part of entrepreneurship or their job. And so when you have those things as a generator, it's really important to like maybe after work is over, you need to go do something that you love. Go watch a movie if you love movies. Go out to dinner. Find something that's going to replenish, refill, recharge that sacral battery. Because if you don't, that can lead to burnout really quickly for generators. I think a misconception about generators is that because they have that energy, they can just keep doing things and keep working, when really they need to be doing those things that are lighting them up and bringing them joy. So that's manifestors and generators. The next one would be manifesting generators, which is a combination of the first two. They're generators first, so they're really here to respond, but they also have some of that initiating energies. The responding is like either to a person, like someone actually saying, do you want to do this? But it can also be to ideas. And I learned human design from a manifesting generator, and she used this rule of 3. So if she had got an idea 3 times, she considered that something she can respond to if she felt really good about it. Manifesting generators in business, often the ones that I've interacted with, often will have a lot of projects going at the same time. And that's just normal for them. A lot of conditioning can happen for manifesting generators because they've been told you have to do one thing at a time. You have to start the thing and then you have to finish the thing, when really they're designed to just they're like designed to be multitaskers. And so not making that wrong. Like it's okay to have multiple interests and multiple things going on. And then projectors are really like the guides, the wisdom. They have a very penetrative aura, so they can see very deeply into what's going on with a person or a situation. And so projectors are here to wait for an invitation to then share what they're seeing or share their wisdom or share what they have to offer. I've heard it referred to as if someone came up to you with X-ray vision and they're like, oh, I see what's going on here. And you're just like, ooh, that's like, well, how did you know that? You're going to put up your defenses like, ooh, don't tell me everything about myself. And so that's like where that waiting for the invitation opens the doors for projectors to come in and say, okay, like they can even ask for an invitation. You can say, can I share with you what I'm seeing here? And if someone says yes, you've received an invitation, and now that's going to be much better received than if you just walk up to somebody and you're like, here's 5 things you're doing wrong in your business. Like that's going to be taken much differently. So for projectors, they're like usually very good at systems, great coaches if they have that interest. But again, like really waiting for that invitation, even sometimes working in like higher level, like this needs to work in a certain way. So projectors will probably be the people, if they have an email list, they might have the automations all set up. They want to have the system in place before they start anything. And then reflectors are very rare. I think it's like 1 to 3% of the population. And reflectors are here to be like the mirrors of everybody else. They don't have any defined centers, and they just kind of reflect back what they're seeing. And for a reflector, it's traditional teaching that reflectors are here to wait a lunar cycle to make a decision, 28 days. So that's a long time. And if you're a reflector in business, you can't usually always wait 28 days to make a decision. What I have heard and what I've talked to about people is really, if you can optimize your environment, you can make a decision quicker. So get into a space where you feel really good, track a decision. Maybe it's, do I want to launch a new offer? How do I feel about it today? I feel good about it today. How do you feel about it the next day? Like really paying attention to, can I get into a space where I feel good and I feel safe and I feel able to make this decision, track that decision. If you get like a yes 5 days in a row, yeah, this is the right decision for me. But reflectors are going to be really like influenced by the lunar cycle, the moon. And so that's why you want to wait a little bit, because some days you might have all this different energy that's not even yours that's coming in, and just very influenced by the people around you. So finding a community that you feel good with can be super supportive for reflectors too. Those are the 5 types. Like I said, there's definitely nuance and there's a spectrum. And so I think if you can start by using those strategy, start by tapping into your body, like how does this feel when I make this decision? I think that's a really good place for people to start.
I think one of my big takeaways hearing you talk through that is that different people really make decisions and need to work in different ways. And I think sometimes when we feel like we're not living up to like our own expectations, we can say, "Oh, why am I that way?" Like maybe it takes you a long time to make a decision. "Oh, why does it take me so long to make a decision?" Or why I'm a manifesting generator. Why do I have 75 projects that I'm juggling at all times? Like, why is that? Instead of just actually embracing, embracing what makes you uniquely you and creating an environment that helps you thrive, right? Because that's what this is about, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're working on your own. Even if you do still have a corporate job, you still have some kind of control of how you react to things, how you set up your day, all of those things. How can you actually create an environment, a system, a situation that allows it to just be okay that you're the way that you are, that you need more time to make decisions, that you're good at starting things, but not necessarily finishing them. You have permission to make your way of working work for you. And I think that can be really freeing. So instead of sitting around thinking, oh, how can I be more not like myself? You can think, how can I make who I am make sense in my business, make sense in my life, right? And that's a very different way to think that I think can be hard for people to shift to.
It's like the assumption that there is nothing wrong with you. And I think some of us have that, like that almost ingrained belief that something is wrong with me because I'm not like them and they're not like me. So something must be wrong with me. A lot of us internalize that. I'm one of them. And so human design has been an incredible tool. It's like so freeing for me because like, oh, I learned by pulling people's human design charts. And I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. That's why they're like that. It's such a freeing thing because yeah, it helps me. I don't need to compare myself to other people and say I need to be like them, but it also helps me not assume that they're doing something wrong. I think it can go both ways. And I think either way, it gives you so much freedom when you can just feel that ease and that settling in and taking that deep breath of how I am designed is perfect, and I can be successful because of who I am, not like in spite of who I am. So yeah, I love human design, and I love how freeing it can be for people. And I've seen so many people just feel that aha moment of, oh, so I don't need to stop doing that. That's okay. And that's a gift. Like let's like look underneath what we make wrong about ourselves. And oftentimes we can find that there's actually a gift underneath there. And maybe that's the gift that like the world is waiting for and like waiting for you to step into and own. And what if that's what's like been quote missing, if anything's missing from your business? Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of rhetoric in the online space about you've got to do it this way, it should be this way, this is what was successful for me. And when you're trying to absorb and process and then implement a lot of those things, it can feel unnatural or misaligned to how you're being. So I think really tuning in, understanding who you are, at your core, whether that's human design or your strengths and weaknesses, and leaning into them, and then not comparing, not allowing yourself to feed into that narrative of it should be like this, I have this expectation, they did it that way. So Megan, thank you so much for sharing everything today. If someone were to want to find you, learn more from you, how can they do that, and where can they get in touch?
I am on Instagram at It's Megan Barrett, and my website is redeemingrootscoaching.com. I also have a link to just like a beginner's guide to human design, how to find your strengths in your chart, that the link will be down below, I believe, and would love to have you download that and just get started. Human design can be a little overwhelming. I was one of those people who first opened the chart. It was like, oh, not going to dig into that. So I'm trying to simplify that as much as possible for people to see how it can be a tool in your toolbox.
Absolutely. And I think for our listeners, also knowing that we are ready for different things at different times, and that we can go through phases and seasons and experiences in our business and in our life. And we find things and adapt things as we go. So not feeling like you have to absorb everything at the same time, you have to learn about human design and then implement everything right away. It's more about what is going to assimilate, what's going to be a part of what I'm doing, how I'm showing up right now, and I can continue to grow, evolve, and learn over time. So we'll link everything up in the show notes. Thank you so much, Megan, for joining us today, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for tuning in. Find the link in the show notes to join us in the Her First Collective, a free Facebook group to discuss the podcast, ask questions of our guest experts, and network with a group of female entrepreneurs who value collaboration over competition.
Please subscribe, share, leave a review, and be sure to catch our next episode. What is one thing you can do today to prioritize you in business and life?